I sat on a rickety bench just outside the fence at the baby shower venue in Malibu Park, peering through the slats as laughter floated from the decorated pavilion. I'm Karen, 62, originally from New York but now settled in California after retiring as an elementary school teacher. I had poured my savings into this event for my daughter Jessica. Yet here I was, exiled like an unwanted stranger. The ocean breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut flowers I funded, but it did little to ease the knot in my stomach. My sister, Patricia, 65, and always the family organizer as a homemaker, had pulled me aside upon arrival, insisting my casual style might clash with the upscale vibe among the young moms and social media crowd. I had spent the morning in a light blue sundress, hair pinned neatly, holding a handmade quilt in my gift bag. But no warm welcomes came, not from Jessica, 30, and busy as a marketer posing for photos, or her husband Brian, 32, and an engineer adjusting his collar while his mother Evelyn, 60, and a business owner arranged the gift table. I watched the games unfold, toasts raised without a nod to me, as if I, Karen, hadn't covered the catering spreads, decor arches, and venue rental overlooking the waves. My fingers steadied on my phone as I launched the vendor apps, canceling the caterer's delivery, the decorator's setup, and the venue's extension in swift taps. I smiled outwardly, stayed silent, but inwardly, a firm decision took hold that would disrupt their flawless gathering. Subscribe if this resonates, and comment where you're watching from. Family can be a place of warmth, but sometimes it's also where the deepest heartbreak comes from. If you've ever gone through something similar, share your story so we can listen and understand together. Leave a comment below and let's see if we share the same struggles. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey side by side. That morning at the venue, I drove up to the park's main gate as planned, the early light casting long shadows across the grass while I gathered my thoughts in the parking lot. Workers hurried around the central pavilion, unfolding tables and tying ribbons to posts for the day's celebration. Patricia noticed me right away and crossed the path with purposeful steps, her role as the 65-year-old homemaker who thrives on directing family gatherings evident in her clipped efficiency. She scanned my attire, a modest knee-length floral skirt and matching blouse I picked for its practicality, and her brow furrowed slightly. "Karen, let's step aside briefly," she said, guiding me to a secluded area beyond the setup zone. With a firm but polite demeanor, she clarified that my clothing didn't sync with the event's intended atmosphere, appearing too relaxed and ordinary for the assembly of Jessica's upscale acquaintances and digital influencers who favored a refined, visually appealing environment. As the aunt overseeing logistics, she aimed to maintain uniformity, ensuring the snapshots captured on social media reflected a sophisticated narrative. I absorbed the explanation with a nod, the implications sinking in without argument, eager to avoid any tension during Jessica's milestone. She mentioned it was just for the initial part, and I'd be included shortly before pivoting back to supervise the floral arrangements. I positioned myself on a nearby stump, my hands developing a slight tremor against my thighs, reminiscent of anxious moments before addressing school boards in my educator past. The skirt's material now struck me as mismatched amid the polished displays visible in the distance, its subtle hues lost against the vivid decorations. Arrivals picked up pace soon, ladies in fashionable outfits bearing presents. Brian extending greetings with his steady engineer's composure, as Evelyn, his 60-year-old mother, an adept business proprietor, managed the beverage counter with authoritative flair. Jessica navigated the crowd smoothly, her expectant form accentuated in a graceful ensemble, sharing stories about baby registries with her marketing peers. Diane, my 55-year-old cousin, showed up as well, exchanging a brief acknowledgement before immersing in the activities. The separation gnawed steadily, a dull ache expanding in my torso, as the reality crystallized that this segregation stemmed from deliberate intent, crafted to sideline specific presences. Around lunchtime, the addresses commenced, and I tilted closer to absorb the session from my outpost, the speaker system projecting tones over the faint rustle of leaves. Evelyn led off with confidence honed from her corporate experience, conveying gratitude for the assembly, honoring Jessica and Brian's expansion, commending Patricia for the impeccable coordination akin to a veteran coordinator. Brian proceeded infusing levity about impending parenting challenges and the reliable circle surrounding them, eliciting smiles from the participants. Jessica then assumed the spotlight, her delivery sincere and enthusiastic, recognizing her associates for the interactive segments, Patricia for the thorough oversight, and Evelyn for the tailored mementos. Absent was any allusion to me, no recognition for the foundational support or arrangements that enabled the occasion. The void echoed profoundly, my hold on the stump firming to temper the mounting disillusionment. I noted the assembly lift their beverages together, accolades resounding without my inclusion, the sentimental divide broadening with every unacknowledged element. Midway through the party, the atmosphere grew lively as the microphone passed hands' voices, booming across the open space with stories and well wishes for the new arrival. Patricia grabbed the spotlight after the initial rounds, her delivery steady and commanding, as the 65-year-old homemaker who relished steering these occasions, outlining how she had curated the playlist and seating to foster a warm, intimate feel. She thanked the vendors for their prompt service and the guests for their thoughtful contributions, emphasizing the collective effort that made the day special, without a hint of my role in securing those elements. The words flowed smoothly, drawing nods and smiles from the crowd, but each omission built a layer of unease in my gut, like overlooked homework in my old classroom logs. I shifted slightly on my spot, the grass prickling through my shoes, absorbing how she positioned herself as the pivotal figure, the aunt who tied everything together seamlessly. Jessica followed suit, stepping forward with energy typical of her 30-year-old marketer persona, her speech laced with anecdotes about pregnancy cravings and nursery themes that had the group engaged. She expressed deep appreciation for Patricia's guidance in pulling off the vision, crediting her for the cohesive look that would shine in shared photos online. Additional shouts went to her husband Brian for his steady support as a 32-year-old engineer handling the home front, and to Evelyn, his mother, for sourcing the unique party favors as a 60-year-old business owner with an eye for details. Diane, my 55-year-old cousin, chimed in with a quick laugh during the interactive part, but Jessica wrapped up by toasting the circle of friends and family present, her tone heartfelt yet exclusive, bypassing any nod to the financial backbone I provided. The lack of acknowledgement settled like a stone in my throat, the disappointment coiling tighter with every unmentioned transaction. As the applause faded and games resumed, I pulled out my phone discreetly, opening the banking app to glance at recent activity amid the distant cheers. A quick scroll revealed unexpected entries from days prior, charges for extra dessert trays and photo booth rentals that I hadn't authorized totaling several $100s pulled directly from my account without consultation. The discovery hit like a sudden draft, my pulse quickening as I cross-checked the dates against emails from the planning phase. Jessica's name appeared in one vendor note as the contact for upgrades, while Patricia had signed off on another, their roles as event leads now tied to these oversteps. The realization fueled a slow burn of frustration, the unauthorized pulls feeling like a breach of trust amid the ongoing sidelining. With the party still in full swing, I navigated to the vendor portals one by one, starting with the catering service for the remaining courses, confirming a scaled-back order that would end deliveries early. Next came the decor team, instructing them to hold off on additional installations like the planned backdrop refresh. Finally, I messaged the venue manager about shortening the booking time, each step deliberate yet measured to avoid immediate chaos. The decisions accumulated quietly, the disappointment transforming into a focused determination as I pocketed the device. The sounds of laughter continued uninterrupted for now, but the undercurrent of exclusion had tipped into something actionable. A quiet recalibration of my involvement. That evening at the hotel, I checked into my room overlooking the dimly lit parking lot, the drive back from the park leaving me drained yet alert. The space smelled of generic lavender cleaner, the bed firm under my weight as I kicked off my shoes and sank onto the edge. Sleep evaded me entirely, my mind replaying the day's events in loops that kept my eyes fixed on the ceiling fan's slow rotation. Around midnight, I sat up reaching for my tablet to dive into the event's financials. A spreadsheet I had maintained meticulously over months of planning. Rows detailed every expense: the park permit for $3,000, catering at $2,500, decor supplies, totaling $1,800, all drawn from my fixed income as a retired teacher. Scrolling through the tabs revealed discrepancies, additional line items for premium linens, and extra seating that bumped the total beyond what I had approved. The figures stared back accusingly, confirming the overreaches I had glimpsed earlier. The deeper review uncovered notes linking those extras to requests from Patricia and Jessica, her as the self-appointed director pushing for upscale touches, and Jessica as the expectant center endorsing the enhancements for her circle. Evelyn had even added a comment on one invoice for specialty drinks, her business savvy extending to these tweaks without my input. Brian's name popped up on a minor add-on for tech setup, his technical expertise apparently justifying the cost. Diane had texted me once about the basics but stayed out of the finances. The unauthorized adjustments totaled over $1,000, pulling from my card in small increments that now formed a pattern of presumption. The revelation stirred a quiet indignation, my breathing steadying, as the numbers solidified the day's slights into tangible evidence. By 1 a.m., I opened my email client, composing messages to the vendors with precise language. First to the catering company, notifying them of full withdrawal due to revised needs and withholding the final payment. The decor supplier received a similar note, canceling any outstanding deliveries and balance transfers. For the venue, I drafted a detailed cancellation for the extended hours, citing changes in schedule and requesting confirmation of no further charges. Each send button clicked with a sense of reclaiming control, the disappointment from earlier evolving into an empowering clarity. No longer just a passive funder, but someone drawing boundaries. The process felt methodical, my focus sharpening amid the room's hush. My phone buzzed intermittently starting around 10 p.m. Initial texts from Jessica questioning the early end to food service. Her tone confused and edged with irritation as the marketer used to smooth operations. Patricia followed with a voicemail, her homemaker authority cracking as she demanded explanations for the decor, pullback sounding flustered about the disrupted flow. Brian sent a brief message asking if everything was okay, his engineer's practicality masking underlying concern. Evelyn chimed in via group chat, her business tone probing the venue cutoff and its impact on cleanup. Even Diane reached out curiously, wondering about the abrupt shifts. I let the notifications pile up unanswered, the shift to empowerment allowing me to ignore the pings without guilt, focusing instead on the spreadsheet's updated totals reflecting my adjustments. The next morning, light streamed into the room as I woke the hotel coffee maker gurgling in the background while I sat up to face the day's residue. My phone showed a stack of unread alerts, the icons glowing with urgency from the fallout. I hit play on the voicemails first. Patricia's recording crackled with outrage, her homemaker's command fraying as she ranted about the service halts ruining the vibe and demanding accountability for the chaos. Jessica's voice followed, laced with exasperation typical of her marketer flair, berating the untimely cutoffs that left her scrambling for explanations to guests. Their messages carried a mix of blame and disbelief, each one underscoring the expectation that I would fix it quietly. The intensity amplified my resolve, but I skipped replying, letting the silence speak as I moved on. Brian had texted overnight with clipped questions about the glitches, his engineer's precision probing for a logical resolution. Evelyn added to the thread with pointed remarks, her business acumen framing the disruptions as avoidable errors needing swift correction. Diane chimed in mildly, her cousin's curiosity seeking context without accusation. The family's collective pushback painted a picture of entitlement, their reactions fueling an online ripple I decided to initiate. Logging into Instagram, I uploaded a scanned receipt, masking account info but highlighting the sum in my authorization, posting it plainly to let viewers draw conclusions in the algorithm's stream. Engagement surged within minutes, friends and distant relatives liking and questioning in the comments, creating a virtual stir that exposed the undercurrents. Patricia fired off a direct message brimming with fury, labeling the share as vindictive and harmful to family harmony. Jessica escalated in her own note, her words sharp about the exposure tarnishing her professional network. The unfolding exchanges turned personal, their defensiveness sparking debates among mutual connections, transforming a private slight into public discourse. Seeking perspective, I browsed for relevant forums and enrolled in an online community for estranged parents, a space buzzing with narratives of boundary setting and recovery. Nancy reached out via text after spotting the post, her 60-year-old nurse's compassion evident in suggestions honed from dealing with crises in the ER, advising me to prioritize my peace and view the backlash as validation for stepping back. In the group discussions, participants shared tactics like documenting interactions and building support networks, their insights resonating with my situation. The advice from Nancy and the forum members bolstered my stance, the shared experiences converting isolation into solidarity, as the family's persistent pings went unheeded. A few days later at home, I unlocked the front door to my quiet house in suburban California, the familiar creak echoing as I dropped my keys on the entry table. The air carried a faint mustiness from being away, sunlight filtering through curtains onto the living room rug. Unpacking took little time, a few clothes into the laundry hamper, toiletries back to the bathroom shelf, leaving me with an empty afternoon. Wandering into the study, I eyed the cluttered desk drawers where old documents piled up over years. One red folder caught my attention, tucked behind faded tax forms and expired warranties, its edges worn from infrequent handling. Pulling it out stirred a vague memory of stashing keepsakes there after Ronald's passing, items too raw to sort through then. Ronald, my late husband, who had been a quiet accountant before his heart gave out at 64, left behind scattered papers I had avoided for decades. The folder contained envelopes yellowed with age, one sealed with his neat script, addressing me directly. Curiosity overrode hesitation as I slit the flap open, unfolding the single sheet inside. His handwriting, slanted and deliberate, dated just weeks before he died. The opening lines apologized for long-held secrets, his words measured, yet heavy with regret. As I read further, the content shifted to revelations about our marriage, admitting an affair early on that resulted in a child he claimed as ours. Jessica, he confessed, was not biologically mine, but the product of that liaison, a truth he buried to preserve our family unit. The disclosure landed like a muffled thud, my vision blurring momentarily as the implications sank in. Shock rippled through me, a cold wave tracing my spine, questioning every milestone I had cherished as her mother. Images flashed unbidden, her first steps in our backyard, the late-night soothing fevers with cool cloths, the double shifts I pulled to afford her dance lessons. All those efforts now reframed under this hidden fact, the he-seen feeling, both profound and misplaced. Ronald's letter detailed how he convinced me of her premature birth to align timelines, his role as the deceiver, now exposed in ink. The inner turmoil churned a blend of betrayal and sorrow, realizing my devotion had built on a foundation of deception. Continuing through the paragraphs, he expressed remorse for the burden placed on me, acknowledging my unwavering commitment despite the lie. The clarity emerged slowly amid the haze, illuminating how I had poured my life into raising her, from school projects to college applications, without a blood tie to anchor it. The shock evolved into a stark awareness, highlighting the depth of my choices. Not obligated by genetics, but driven by love I chose daily. Ronald's final words pleaded for understanding, his accountant's precision in phrasing, unable to soften the blow. I set the paper down, my breath shallow as the room spun briefly, the revelation reshaping memories into a mosaic of voluntary endurance. The emotional aftershocks lingered as I paced the floor, the house's silence amplifying my thoughts. The he-sin, the missed vacations, the scrimped savings, the emotional labor, gained new weight, no longer just maternal duty, but a testament to my resilience. The inner shock gave way to a tentative peace, the truth stripping away illusions, yet affirming my strength. Ronald's confession, though devastating, unlocked a perspective on my role, not diminished, but elevated by the absence of biological imperative. The following week. Sunlight slanted through the blinds as I revisited the study, the red folder drawing me back like an unfinished task. Rifling through its depths again, my fingers brushed a slim insert hidden in the back flap. Another letter from Ronald, this one folded tightly without an envelope. The paper crinkled under my touch, his script more hurried than the previous, dated mere days before his passing at 64, as the reserved accountant who kept ledgers but not emotions in check. Unfolding it released a faint old paper scent, the contents diving straight into elaboration, detailing the affair's timeline with a former co-worker named Laura, including meetings in discreet cafes and a weekend trip masked as business. He explained how the pregnancy forced a decision choosing to integrate Jessica into our marriage by falsifying her origins, complete with altered doctor records to match our story. The expanded account intensified the prior disclosure, a surge of dismay washing over me as the specifics painted a vivid betrayal. Inner shock manifested as a tight band across my forehead, the details forcing a re-evaluation of our shared history. Ronald's role not just as husband, but as architect of a sustained falsehood. Recollections surged, Jessica's school graduations, where I beamed from the audience, the financial stretches for her first car, the countless advice sessions on career paths. The high sin now appeared even more unilateral, rooted in a deception that robbed me of informed choice. The letter confessed his ongoing torment, observing my dedication while harboring the secret, his words laden with belated contrition for the imbalance it created. Armed with both documents, a decisive calm settled, propelling me to summon Jessica and Patricia for a direct encounter at my place. I called them midweek, proposing a neutral discussion over tea to address recent tensions. They showed up on Saturday, Jessica knocking first with hesitant steps as the 30-year-old marketer accustomed to polished presentations, Patricia close behind, exuding her 65-year-old homemaker's no-nonsense air. Seated in the den with cups steaming, I laid out the letters and receipts without delay, voicing Ronald's admissions and linking them to the shower's exclusions and financial liberties. Jessica reacted with immediate defensiveness, her voice pitching higher as she denied the relevance, arguing that nurture trumped nature and accusing me of weaponizing old news to justify withdrawal. Patricia jumped in aggressively, her tone laced with scorn as she branded the evidence dubious relics, countering that my post online had already poisoned relations. I pushed back steadily, highlighting the affair's proof and the charges as patterns of exploitation, their interruptions growing heated with claims of ingratitude on my part. Jessica shot back tearfully about needing support during pregnancy, while Patricia sneered at my sudden backbone as manipulative timing. The back and forth turned acrimonious voices overlapping in accusations. Jessica labeling my boundaries as abandonment, Patricia insinuating ulterior motives tied to jealousy. I revealed the second letter's intricacies, their denials faltering under the weight of dates and names, the confrontation exposing raw resentments. Brian phoned Jessica midway, his 32-year-old engineer's rationality, attempting to de-escalate via speaker, but she dismissed it amid the fray. Evelyn texted Patricia for updates, her 60-year-old business mindset fueling further barbs about legal ramifications. Diane emailed me separately, her 55-year-old cousin's worry offering neutral ground, yet I stayed focused, declaring the severance of all ties from communication to any future aid. Their protests peaked in a cacophony of pleas and threats, but I stood resolute, preparing mentally for the complete cutoff by outlining no-contact protocols and account changes. The meeting ended with them storming out the door, slamming behind, the evidence left on the table as final testimony to irreparable divides. A month later, the final severance locked in place with numbers blocked across devices and shared spaces, reclaimed through simple paperwork. No lingering threads connected us, the air in my home lighter, without the weight of anticipated calls. The full break ushered in routine freedoms, walks in the neighborhood, quiet reading hours, a sense of ownership over my schedule. Planning the gathering came naturally, extending invites to a select circle for a relaxed outdoor meal in the backyard. Nancy arrived bearing her usual casserole, her steady presence as a 60-year-old nurse who balanced shifts with community bonds. We swapped stories of daily wins, her insights on resilience cutting through with practical wisdom. Sarah joined with a fruit salad, her 58-year-old librarian's knack for storytelling weaving humor into the mix, her tales always laced with quiet encouragement. Tom contributed grill tools, his 62-year-old retiree's hobby of barbecuing, turning the setup into a collaborative ritual. Maria brought fresh bread, her 55-year-old artist's flair evident in the hand-decorated loaves, her creativity sparking light-hearted sketches on napkins. The menu featured grilled veggies, pasta, and pies, casual dishes that fostered easy flow without formality. As stars emerged, the talk evolved organically, Nancy prompting shares on personal boundaries, her prompts revealing layers of mutual understanding. I recounted the confrontation's echoes, the group offering nods of solidarity without judgment. Sarah likened it to plot twists in novels, her observations framing the ordeal as a catalyst for reinvention. Tom compared it to clearing yard debris for healthier growth, his metaphor stressing the value of fertile soil over crowded roots. Maria reflected on canvas layers, her view highlighting how erasure allows bold strokes to emerge. The conversation wove a tapestry of validation, self-worth not earned through endurance but asserted in release, a quiet power in choosing solitude over strain. Their consequences unfolded in waves, the botched event rippling into concrete losses under American consumer laws. The park authority upheld the forfeiture of the $5,000 deposit, citing breach terms in the lease. Patricia's appeals dismissed in small claims court after records showed her overrides. Gossip spread via neighborhood apps and local networks, her status as the go-to planner crumbling under whispers of mismanagement. Bookings canceled, friends distancing, and polite silences. Jessica's bank disputes bounced back after audit trails confirmed approvals, saddling her with the extra costs amid newborn bills. Her attempts at fraud alerts denied interest accruing on the balance. The hard lesson crystallized amid the gathering's warmth: blind trust in those who prop up your joys invites betrayal's sharp edge. Those silent architects of happiness, often dismissed as fixtures, deserve recognition or face the void of their absence. Peace settled deeply now, mornings with birdsong and afternoons in the garden. A reclaimed narrative where self-worth blooms unchecked. My heartfelt thanks to everyone who patiently listened to the whole journey of my life. Your care and empathy give me the courage to open up. Let's look forward together to the next chapter where truth and emotions will once again collide.
You're abandoning your family, Rebecca. My mom's voice thundered through the phone, cutting through the silence of my office. I pinched the bridge of my nose, already feeling the tension settle in. Mom, I've explained this 100 times. I can't keep bailing Brian out. He's 30 years old. He needs to take responsibility for himself. Her response was immediate, sharp, and full of the same guilt-laden reproach I'd heard countless times before. He's your brother. Family is supposed to help each other. I glanced at the neatly stacked paperwork on my desk, reminders of the long hours I worked to maintain my stability. I've helped him, Mom, for years. This isn't about family. It's about the fact that he doesn't care. He spent all his savings, and now he expects me to clean up the mess. Again. My name is Rebecca, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one in the family. After my dad passed away when I was 10, I grew up fast, taking on more than most kids my age ever had to. Meanwhile, my brother Brian always had a knack for sliding by. Now at 30, he worked part-time at a convenience store and still managed to blow through his savings on expensive gadgets, nights out, and vacations he couldn't afford. When his landlord threatened to evict him, my mom didn't ask. She demanded that I cover his rent. I refused. That decision sent my mom and Brian into a tailspin. 2 days later, I woke up to a notification on my phone. My heart sank as I opened Facebook and saw a long post from my mom. Family should stick together. But sadly, not everyone believes that. Some people would rather abandon their own blood than lift a finger to help. It's a shame when greed comes before family values. I'm truly disappointed. The comments poured in. People I hadn't seen in years chimed in, offering sympathy and criticizing me for being selfish or uncaring. And then there was Brian's post. I never thought my own sister would leave me out in the cold, but I guess money means more to her than her family. At least I know who really has my back. Thanks, Mom. The words stung, but not as much as the betrayal. They were painting me as a villain to everyone we knew, twisting the story to make me look heartless. I put my phone down and stared out the window, anger bubbling under the surface. I had sacrificed so much for them over the years, and this was how they repaid me? Publicly shaming me for setting boundaries? But as the anger settled into something sharper, I made a decision. If they wanted to turn this into a public spectacle, I was ready to fight back. After seeing those Facebook posts, I couldn't shake the anger coursing through me. I had tried so hard to be the dependable one, to take care of things for the family after my dad passed. But this was too much. I sat down at my kitchen table, my laptop open in front of me, replaying the past few years in my head. How many times had I stepped in to help Brian? Too many to count. When he lost his job 2 years ago because he stopped showing up, I covered his bills until he found another one. When his car broke down, I gave him the money to fix it, only to find out later he'd used it to buy concert tickets instead. And when he borrowed money to get back on his feet, it went straight to designer sneakers and online shopping. The worst part wasn't even Brian's irresponsibility. It was my mom's unwavering defense of him. Boys are different, she'd say whenever I brought it up. He just needs time to figure things out. That time had turned into years of excuses, and now, with those Facebook posts, she'd gone from making excuses to outright vilifying me. I opened my email, intending to respond to a work inquiry, but I couldn't focus. The knot in my stomach wouldn't let me move on. Enough was enough. Later that evening, I called a lawyer. I explained the situation, my voice shaking with frustration as I detailed the posts and the damage they had done to my reputation. I can't just let them get away with this, I said, my anger barely contained. The lawyer listened patiently before responding. Defamation cases can be tricky, but if their posts have caused you real harm, whether professionally or emotionally, you have grounds to act. Let's get started by gathering evidence. I hung up the phone, feeling a mixture of anger and relief. Finally, someone was on my side, but as I gathered screenshots of the posts, an idea struck me. My dad had left an inheritance for both Brian and me, one that was supposed to be protected until we turned 25. I hadn't thought about it in years, assuming my portion was safely sitting in an account. Curiosity got the better of me. I called the lawyer back the next day. While we're at it, can you look into my inheritance? I just want to make sure everything's in order. Of course, the lawyer replied. I didn't know it yet, but that request was about to unravel a much bigger betrayal than a few Facebook posts. A week after I had called the lawyer, I received an email that sent a chill down my spine. The subject line read, Inheritance Investigation Findings. I clicked on it and read through the summary carefully. My lawyer had discovered that, for the past 5 years, Brian had been withdrawing money from what should have been my portion of the inheritance. The account had been managed by my mom until I turned 25, but it seemed that Brian had somehow gained access to it after that and had been dipping into it regularly. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the document. Thousands of dollars, gone. Money I'd never even known I had, used for who knows what. When I called my lawyer to get more details, his voice was calm but firm. It appears that your brother accessed the account without your permission. It's a clear case of theft. He's taken a significant portion of what was rightfully yours. I leaned back in my chair, trying to process what he was saying. How could this happen? My mom was in charge of the account for years. She never said anything about Brian having access. It's possible she didn't know, the lawyer said. but it's also possible she trusted him to manage it responsibly. Either way, it's a serious breach. The implications were staggering. Not only had Brian been stealing from me, but my mom, whether knowingly or unknowingly, had let it happen. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the financial records my lawyer had sent me. Each transaction felt like a slap in the face. Concert tickets, electronics, vacations, things I had struggled to afford for myself while Brian had been using my money to fund his lifestyle. The Facebook post suddenly felt like the least of my problems. This wasn't just about public humiliation anymore. This was a betrayal that went to the very core of my family. I debated calling my mom right then and there, demanding answers. But I stopped myself. Confronting her without a plan would only lead to more deflection and guilt-tripping. Instead, I emailed my lawyer. "What's the next step?" I asked. By the time I went to bed, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this go. For years, I had been the one who sacrificed, the one who kept the peace while Brian got away with everything. Not anymore. As I turned off the light, one thought kept running through my mind. They're about to find out exactly who they're dealing with. The next day, I met with my lawyer in his office to discuss the next steps. The small room felt suffocating as I laid out every piece of information he had uncovered. "This isn't just about the inheritance," I said firmly. "Brian and my mom have crossed a line. Those Facebook posts were bad enough, but now I find out he's been stealing from me for years. I want to take action, serious action." My lawyer nodded, his expression calm and professional. "We'll start by filing for defamation based on the social media posts. But regarding the inheritance theft, we'll need to pursue a separate case. It's straightforward given the records we have, but it might get messy." "Messy doesn't bother me," I replied, crossing my arms. "I'm done letting them walk all over me." That evening, I called my mom. I needed answers, whether she was complicit in this or just blindly trusting Brian. "Hi, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "Rebecca," she answered quickly, her tone still carrying the usual edge of annoyance. "Are you calling to apologize? You know, Brian is—" "Save it," I interrupted, cutting her off mid-sentence. "I have some questions about Dad's inheritance, specifically about why Brian has been accessing my portion." There was a long pause on her end. "What are you talking about?" she finally asked, her voice tinged with confusion. Or was it guilt? "I had a lawyer look into it," I said. "For the past 5 years, Brian's been withdrawing money from my share. Thousands of dollars, Mom. Did you know about this?" Her hesitation spoke volumes. "Rebecca, it's not what you think," she said finally. "Brian. He needed help. He promised me he'd pay it back." My chest tightened, a mixture of anger and disbelief washing over me. "You knew? You knew he was stealing from me and you didn't say anything?" "I didn't think it was stealing," she said defensively. "It's family money. He was in a tough spot, and I trusted him to handle it responsibly." I laughed bitterly. "Responsibly? He's been blowing it on vacations and gadgets while I've been working myself to the bone, and you let it happen." "Rebecca, please," she pleaded. "You don't understand. Brian's been struggling. I thought you'd be okay without it." "That's not your call to make," I snapped. "I trusted you to protect that money and you handed it over to him like it was nothing. Do you have any idea how betrayed I feel right now?" She tried to argue, but I couldn't listen anymore. "This conversation is over," I said coldly. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." As I hung up, a wave of clarity washed over me. For years I had let them manipulate me, guilt me into submission. Not anymore. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. It was about finally standing up for myself. The fallout from that phone call was immediate. The next morning, my phone lit up with missed calls and frantic messages from my mom. Her tone in the voicemails shifted between defensive and desperate. "Rebecca, you can't do this. Brian didn't mean any harm." Followed by, "Let's just sit down and talk about this as a family. You don't need to involve lawyers." But I didn't respond. I felt a sense of control. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about setting boundaries, about making it clear that I wasn't going to be their doormat any longer. Brian, of course, took a different approach. Later that day, I logged into Facebook to find a new round of posts aimed at me. First, she refuses to help her own brother. Now she's threatening to sue her family over money. Greedy, selfish, and heartless. Some people really show their true colors when it comes to cash. I stared at the post, my jaw tightening. The comments were filled with the same crowd of enablers from before, chiming in with their unsolicited opinions. She sounds awful. Family should come first, no matter what. Brian, you're better off without her. And I took a screenshot and sent it to my lawyer without a second thought. The next day, I met with him again. We're filing both cases, he said. The defamation suit is straightforward. As for the inheritance, we have more than enough evidence to prove theft. But you need to be prepared. This is going to strain your relationship with your mom even further. I leaned forward, my expression hard. It's already strained beyond repair. Let's do it. He nodded. One more thing. If this goes to court, Brian will have to explain where the money went. Are you ready for that? It could get ugly. A part of me hesitated. Did I want to know how deep this betrayal ran? But then I thought about the years I'd spent sacrificing for a family that never appreciated me. I'm ready, I said firmly. That evening, I got another call from my mom. This time I picked up. Rebecca, she said, her voice trembling. I talked to Brian. He told me some things about the money. I didn't know it was this bad. What did he tell you? I asked, my tone sharp. Her silence spoke volumes. I'm sorry, she finally whispered. I didn't realize how much he'd taken. I should have stopped him. Her words felt hollow, but I let her continue. I'm going to talk to him again. We'll figure this out. Just, please don't take this to court. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. It's out of my hands now, Mom. You should have thought about this years ago. As I hung up, I felt a mix of anger and relief. She was starting to see the truth, but it was far too late to undo the damage. A week later, my lawyer called with an update that caught me completely off guard. We've been reviewing additional financial records, he began, his tone calm but serious. And it turns out Brian hasn't just been dipping into your inheritance. He's also been misusing some of your mom's accounts. I froze. What do you mean? It seems he's been accessing funds from an account your mom set aside for her retirement, he explained. We found consistent withdrawals that match the same pattern as the ones he made from your inheritance. For a moment, I couldn't find the words. My mom had been so adamant about defending Brian, so blind to his faults, and now he'd stolen from her too? Does she know? I asked finally. Not yet, he replied. But if we proceed with both cases, this information will come to light. I hung up the phone, my mind racing. As much as I was angry with my mom for enabling Brian, the thought of her losing her retirement savings made my stomach churn. Later that evening, I called her. Mom, I began, my voice steady. I need to tell you something, and it's not going to be easy to hear. What is it? She asked, her tone weary. I explained what the lawyer had uncovered. The silence on her end was deafening. He took my money? She finally whispered, her voice shaking. Yes, Mom, I said, softening my tone. I didn't want to tell you this, but you deserve to know. Brian's been stealing from both of us. Her response was a mix of shock and devastation. I can't believe this, she said, her voice breaking. I trusted him. I trusted him with everything. You shouldn't have, I said gently. I know you love him, but you've been enabling him for years. This is what happens when there are no consequences. She began to cry, and for the first time I felt a pang of sympathy for her. As much as she had hurt me, she was also a victim of Brian's selfishness. What do we do now? She asked through her tears. We let the legal process play out, I said firmly. This isn't just about the money anymore. It's about accountability. The following days were tense. My lawyer filed both cases, and I could feel the weight of the upcoming confrontation pressing down on me. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew it was necessary. For years, I had allowed my mom and Brian to take advantage of my kindness. But this time, I was standing my ground. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions, no matter how much it hurt. The first court date arrived sooner than I expected. Sitting in the courtroom, I felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. On one side, I wanted justice for what Brian had done, for the years of entitlement, for the theft, for the way he had painted me as the villain. But on the other side, I knew this process would be painful, dragging our family's darkest secrets into the light. When Brian entered the courtroom with my mom, his smug expression made my blood boil. He had the audacity to look bored, like this was just another inconvenience in his life. My mom, however, looked completely defeated. She avoided my gaze, her shoulders hunched as though the weight of everything had finally caught up to her. The lawyer presented the evidence methodically. Transaction records, bank statements, and screenshots of the social media posts were laid out in black and white. Each time my lawyer spoke, I could see Brian shifting uncomfortably in his seat. And when it came time for Brian to speak, his tone was predictably deflective. "I didn't mean for things to get this far," he said, his voice dripping with faux sincerity. "I was struggling, okay? I only took the money because I thought I could pay it back. But Rebecca doesn't understand what it's like to need help. She's always had everything together." My jaw clenched as I listened to his excuses. Struggling didn't explain the vacations, the gadgets, or the nights out. And as much as he tried to play the victim, the evidence told a different story. When the judge asked my mom to testify, she hesitated, glancing at Brian nervously. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. "I trusted Brian," she admitted. "I thought he'd use the money responsibly, but I didn't know how much he'd taken, or what he was using it for. I didn't realize how much he'd hurt Rebecca." Her words stung, but they also carried a glimmer of accountability. She was acknowledging the truth. The court ruled in my favor. Brian was ordered to repay the money he had stolen, and the defamation case was settled with a public apology that both he and my mom had to issue online. It wasn't a perfect victory. I knew it would take years for Brian to pay back what he owed, and the apology, while satisfying, didn't erase the damage they had done. But it was a start. As we left the courtroom, Brian shot me a glare. "I hope you're happy," he spat. "I am," I said simply, meeting his gaze without flinching. My mom lingered behind, her eyes filled with tears. "Rebecca, I don't know how to make this right," she said quietly. "You start by being honest," I replied. "With me, with yourself, and with Brian. No more excuses." She nodded slowly, her face a mix of guilt and sadness. "I'll try," she whispered. That evening I sat in my apartment, reflecting on everything that had happened. The courtroom battle was over, but the real work was just beginning. Setting boundaries with my family wasn't going to be easy, but I felt like I had the strength to do it. And as much as it hurt to see my mom and brother for who they really were, I felt a sense of relief knowing I had finally stood up for myself. In the weeks following the court ruling, life felt oddly quiet. I wasn't inundated with calls or messages from my mom anymore, demanding that I be there for Brian or solve their latest crisis. It was as though the verdict had forced her to take a step back, or maybe she was just too embarrassed to face me. But the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like peace. One afternoon, as I sorted through my bills at the kitchen table, my phone rang. The caller ID flashed my mom's name. For a moment, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something compelled me to pick up. "Hi, Mom," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Hi, Rebecca," she replied, her voice hesitant. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About the inheritance, the court case, Brian." I waited, unsure of where this was going. I didn't want to believe it at first, she continued. But I can't ignore the truth anymore. You were right. About him, about me. I let him take advantage of you, and I stood by while he hurt you. I'm so sorry. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For years I had dreamed of an apology like this, but now that it was here, I didn't know how to feel. Thank you for saying that, I said finally. But it's not just about apologizing, Mom. It's about changing. For years I've let you and Brian treat me like I didn't matter. That has to stop. She sighed. I know. I've been thinking about how I can do better. I just hope it's not too late to fix things between us. I didn't respond right away. It's not too late, I said eventually, but it's going to take time. Meanwhile, Brian had gone radio silent. Part of me wondered if he was plotting some sort of revenge, but my lawyer assured me the legal agreements made it impossible for him to retaliate financially. Still, I knew better than to trust him. One afternoon, I received a notification that Brian had posted on Facebook. Against my better judgment, I opened it, bracing myself for another round of vitriol. Instead, I found a post that was markedly different from his usual tone. I want to apologize to everyone I've hurt, especially my sister, Rebecca. I made mistakes I can't undo, and I'm working to make things right. I know it'll take time, but I hope she'll eventually forgive me. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was he actually trying to take responsibility, or was this just another performance? Either way, I decided not to respond. I wasn't ready to open that door again. Not yet. In the months that followed, I began to rebuild my life. I threw myself into work, pursued hobbies I'd neglected, and even started planning a long overdue vacation. My relationship with my mom remained fragile but functional. She made an effort to call me weekly, not to complain or demand anything, but to ask how I was doing. It was a small step, but it felt significant. As for Brian, I kept my distance. The court had forced him to pay back the money he had stolen, but I knew it would be years before I saw most of it. That was fine by me. I wasn't holding my breath for his redemption. What mattered most was that I had finally reclaimed my power. Months later, I found myself sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about my family or their endless demands. Life had changed in ways I never thought possible. The constant tension that used to weigh on my shoulders had lifted, replaced by a calm I didn't know I was capable of. I had always thought that standing up for myself would mean losing everything, my family, my sense of belonging. But instead, it had given me something I'd been searching for all along: peace. My mom and I had begun to rebuild our relationship, but it was slow. She still called once a week, often to update me on small things like her garden or a book she was reading. These conversations felt lighter, freer, as though the weight of unspoken expectations had finally disappeared. As for Brian, he remained distant. His court-ordered payments came in sporadically, and while I appreciated the restitution, I didn't depend on it. The truth was, I didn't need his apology or his money to move forward. I had learned to stand on my own, not out of anger or spite, but out of respect for myself. And that was enough. As I reflected on everything that had happened, I realized the most significant change wasn't in my family. It was in me. For years, I had been caught in a cycle of seeking approval from people who only seemed to take me for granted. I had bent over backward to support my family, sacrificing my own happiness and stability in the process. But standing up for myself, even when it was hard, had shown me a different path. My mom's tentative efforts to rebuild our relationship were a small comfort. She was trying, in her own way, to make amends. While I didn't fully trust her yet, I could see glimpses of the mother I'd hoped she could be, someone who cared about me for who I was, not just for what I could provide. Brian, on the other hand, was a different story. His attempts at public apologies felt hollow, and I wasn't ready to let him back into my life. Maybe one day I'd be able to forgive him, but that day wasn't today. What mattered most was that I had learned to set boundaries, to value my own time and effort. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I doubted myself. but I knew now that standing up for my worth was always the right choice. As I sipped my tea, I felt a quiet sense of pride. My family might not have changed completely, but I had. And that was enough. The peace I'd found was hard-earned, and I wasn't letting it go.